Not on. Oh, okay. Hello. You're all purple. Okay, you look really, really psychedelic from here. My name is Myrna, and I am, it's not because they're here on stage today, but I am so lucky to have worked with 3 of 10 um, wonderful artists on the Al Burda project. If you have not seen it, I really urge you to go to do so. It's been a year's journey, and it's finally culminated in this exhibition. The basic premise of Al Burda is to celebrate Islamic art. And we have many different voices from different parts of the world interpreting it for us today. So Dana Awartani is originally Palestinian, based in Jeddah. And Zoulikha Bouabdellah is originally Algerian, but based now in Casablanca. And Stanley is from Hong Kong and lives in Hong Kong as well. Our theme today is to talk about the wonderful richness of the Islamic world, but also how threatened it is with politics of today and the charged climate that we live in. I'm going to start with Dana, who's created this amazing installation. That's not it, but I lifted some of these images. It was quite heart-wrenching for me, Dana, to Google search cultural destruction Arab world and to get these. And I wanted to start by asking, how did you come to this idea?
Well, I think for the longest time now, my practice has always been about Islamic art and how to contemporize it, and looking at art from the region historically and in a contemporary sense. And I think given what's going on now today in the Middle East, it was kind of hard for me to ignore all the cultural destruction that is happening. So that's really the starting point for this work. And then when you see the other slides, there's other layers to the work that involve craft traditions, textiles, which also I was working a lot with for the past 2-3 years. So they kind of all came together, and that's how I got to this work for Al Burda. And yeah.
Go ahead.
No, sorry, that's it.
No, there was a when I interviewed you for the Al Burda catalog, you said something that stayed with me, and you said, "I'm not Saudi, I'm not Palestinian, I'm not Syrian, I'm Arab."
Yeah.
And this is my region. So you took all of the the destruction in the Arab world, in this project, but you spun it. So yeah. I'm gonna show you how she spun it. So Dana went to Kerala.
Yeah.
And she found a handloom society who create handmade fabrics, and she would send us these images of her in Kerala making these fabrics. So can you tell us about that? So I'm just gonna keep going with the images a little bit.
Yeah? So these are the dyes actually they used to create the colors, and basically all of the dyes are natural dyes, and it's an completely eco-friendly, sustainable workshop in a way. And I mean, everything is locally sourced. They have their own forest where they rummage for dyes, and they use stuff like cedar wood, henna, turmeric, aloe vera, holy basil, all sorts of local
stuff we use as well.
Yeah, it's totally connected to Arab tradition as well. Yeah. But this is more specifically Ayurvedic dye. So the thing I loved about it is they took the principles of traditional medicine and applied it into textile dyes. So what you're left with is healing textiles. And it's actually, the stuff actually works. So when they researched it, they said that if you wear this fabric, it can heal you from anything like arthritis to diabetes to skin irritations, depression. I thought that was really beautiful, because also the way it's made is all the leftover dye is then used to make biofuel. Because in the contemporary textile industry now, where it's one of the leading reasons for methane gas, and all of the local rivers around textile mills are so polluted from these toxic dyes. So that is the one element I've been working with.
And then this is the installation in its final form. And I have to say to the audience, when we opened up the crates, they gave off a really nice smell because the fabrics had been packed, you know, so they contained these smells inside.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure you can see most of the dots on the panels. So Dana ripped these fabrics and then darned it. In Arabic we say retta. So she re-embroidered the bits that she ripped. And there are 355
around
dots, because these are 355 areas in the Arab world where cultural destruction has happened. And this is represented in 7 Arab nations. I want you to tell us how you decided, it's not a map, I know.
Okay.
How you decided to structure it the way that you did.
Okay, so can we go to the next slide?
The one after.
So first of all, I came across this website. There's quite a lot of these references online where they kind of, if you look at it, they pinpoint in every city across the Middle East, how many monuments have been destroyed. And if you go on to the next slide, please. Here is an example of when you just click on one of them, it shows you who destroyed it, when it was destroyed, what is the name of the place, all of those details. And what I started doing is I started gathering all of this and creating my own archive, but trying to pinpoint the exact location, because here they don't really say where, they just name the city. So I started pinpointing them on actual maps I created. Go to the next.
Dana.
So these, and also I collected a lot of images of the monuments. So that was part of the archiving I did. And the next slide, Myrna. So here's an example of one of the maps. So you have, Damascus, Syria, and there's Iraq, and those are all the points are kind of places where things have been destroyed. And what I did is after I took this map and then transferred it onto the fabric, because I didn't really want it to be a recognizable map. I didn't want you to look at it and be like, okay, this is this city or that, because it wasn't really about that. It was kind of looking at the artwork as a whole. And yeah, as I said, after I kind of transferred them onto the fabric, I started ripping them and then repairing them. And this kind of technique that I used it because I was really interested in something called darning. And I never came across it before. I never really know about it, because in this day and age, if you have something you're wearing that's destroyed, you just throw it away and you buy something new. You know, that's the society we live in. It's just, very disposable. But I found out, like, specifically in India and the Middle East, where we have really prized textiles, like, pashmina shawls that take like 3-4 years to make, what you do is you repair it. And the sad thing about it is, the better the darner is, the more invisible he is, because you're not supposed to see the actual repair. It's supposed to be so perfect that it just blends in with the fabric. But then that's why I decided to use a silk, because I wanted it to kind of really pop out so you could see the places of repair. So I used silk with cotton yarn. And could you go on to the next slide? Yeah, can I?
Yeah, you take it.
Is it this one?
Yeah, for forward.
Yeah. So this is an example of more traditional forms of darning. And it's usually done on wool or cotton. And they tend to take the same fiber from the actual cloth and use it. These are images from the place I worked in Trivandrum, south of India. So in Kerala, it's the birthplace of Ayurvedic medicine. The reason why I went there as well is because sadly in the Arab world, this tradition is really kind of died out. They don't do it as much anymore. You can't find people who even still practice traditional Arab medicine. And yeah, this is the dyeing. And these are
you're actually showing us now.
Just for now.
Yeah.
So yeah, for Iraq and Syria, they have two, because there's so many points of destruction that I couldn't really fit it on one fabric. So if you look at Iraq number 1, that is just Mosul on its own. Yeah. And then here's some kind of details of it being made. And then this is the kind of digital rendering I did of the placements. And I tried to kind of place them kind of geographically accurate, but also balanced in a way. So they are placed in, as you would see on the map, Syria and Iraq. And then you know, Saudi next to it with Yemen underneath, and then Egypt, Libya, and Tunisia on the far left. Yeah.
But Dana, you know, when I look at it like this, it reminds me of some of the walls that I see on buildings in Beirut.
Yeah.
That are riddled with bullets. And but when I see it here, you know, with the colors that you chose, I feel like even if you have the bullets, you're still beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not lost. We can still safeguard, even with all the damage. We can still safeguard. So for me, I feel like your installation is hopeful.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's also personal, because I'm not here trying to give a solution to it, you know, saying this is what we're going to do. It's kind of a very intimate way of me, you know, dealing with such destruction, seeing the Arab world completely being destroyed. It's, you know, because when you do darning and that sort of art form, it's a form of healing. It's a form of repairing. So, and, you know, I do believe they will be repaired. You know, there is already loads of NGOs and government initiatives where they are starting.
Including the Ministry of Culture.
Yeah.
The UAE Ministry of Culture that's rebuilding mosques and churches in Iraq.
Yeah.
But you've shamed them, you know, the guys who did this. It's amazing to feel that, you know, a young contemporary artist has shamed them. So congratulations, I think.
Thank you.
It's outstanding. There's this small announcement that I forgot to make in the beginning. So we were instructed before this talk started that a senior member of the Al Nahyan family might be visiting the fair. So at any moment, somebody might come in and ask us to go and back to the Al Burda exhibition. So I apologize for any inconvenience. We're on standby, but we're going to continue. And then we have Zoulikha. So Zoulikha, aha. So this is a rendering of what you're going to see in the exhibition. In the exhibition, it is red and yellow, because why should Islamic art be black or gray or you know, any other sort of like cliche color? We can be pop, you know, it can be cool. So Zoulikha's mom was Africa's first curator, and ran the National Museum of Algeria. As a senior member of staff, they had apartments inside the museum. So Zoulikha lived in a museum. Lucky her. And so she would go to school and then come back, and her mom would say, and she would tell her mother, oh, you know, today we studied Picasso, and her mom would say, the Arabs did great art. And she'd go back and she'd say, oh, mommy, today we did Monet. The Arabs did great art. Until she took her girls to Alhambra. And I think you can see the motif that Zoulikha has blown up here. So she's taken this, and I wanted to show you, you can see it. It's in the black and white. These are all Alhambra, by the way. So you can see the little black and white. I think it's quite visible even up there. So this line that you're seeing, that black and white, is called the zelij, or in English, it's the frieze. So it's a break. And so what Zoulikha did is she took that little motif and she blew it up. These are images of the work as it was being made. So this is a detail of it. You can see the little, okay? So she blew it up, and then she put it on an 8-pointed star. It's hanging from the ceiling. And it dangles. And it dangles, even when you're standing in front of it. I'm always so cautious. I mean, I've been living with that piece since Saturday, but it makes me nervous. Because you're always scared. It's hanging from threads, it might fall. And the metaphor here is, be careful. Because if you don't take care of your heritage, it will fall. So I wanted to ask you, this is it. So this is what it looks like in its final form, and it rotates. So even in its rotation, it brings to mind circumambulation, which is tawaf, around the Holy Kaaba. I want to start again with how this began. Yeah, how and why.
how I get to
this idea,
this idea of the acrobat installation. I can just share with you an experience that anyone go inside the Riyadh, like in Morocco, because I live in Morocco. It's inside the Riyadh. You have as in the Alhambra, the same thing. Is the wall inside are very rich on decoration. So in the classical style is we have the Zoulikha, which is very colorful, or this geometric shape here that you see. It's and generally it's what we call I don't know in English. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
L'art rayonnant, which is mean that it's we have this shape of the star from in the middle. And it become, to create a world around this star. This like the idea of the center of the world, And then you have the stuk, which is the curves gyps, platter.
Yeah.
Stucco, yeah. Yeah, stucco, yes. And that's you have this line, which is called what we call the frieze that we find as well in the European architecture, of course. And this pattern that we see here, especially in this picture, it has a name. Actually, its shape, each decoration in the Zoulikha that we see has a name. Each shape has a name. Yes, yes.
Wow.
When you go to Morocco and you visit the craftsmen, they really tell you a name of each form. Okay. And then the name of this in the frieze is Sharafa. Sharafa. This the kind of mountain. Okay.
Yeah.
Then yes. So when you look at this, you find it beautiful as as anyone who who live inside the Riyadh. But we don't have a key actually to read this, because we just we call that a beautiful art or aesthetic art or decorative art. But it's more than that, okay? So I just want to share this experience when you just take time and you try to read these forms. And they have many possible interpretation. That's what I want to share actually with Peking Acrobat.
Why did you do it?
Why? Because I feel like we are missing something on not working on this mediation, Because when we used to, in the past, we were like more close to our craftsmen, We go to see what they are doing. We talk to them. They will explain everything, the name of each shape, why it's called like that, and so. But today we don't have this communication with this aircraft, so we're losing something. We are losing something, and more than that, because in my case, I grew up in Algeria, and then I studied in France. So, and actually in the museum in Algiers, it was a museum of fine art, European fine art. So I had to really actually in Algeria more to learn about European art than Islamic art. That's why my mom, she want to rectify that, and that bring us to Alhambra. So when I study in France, of course, I study European art, Western art, and of course the modern like Picasso, Matisse, all artists that you know very well, I'm sure. So when I discovered something kind of by myself, but I finally, when you search a bit, you find all this information, and you find out that the what we call the conceptual art, it's art Islam already. So when discovered that, it took me a long time. When I would discover that I found that it's really rich, and that's why kind of أستلهم من ذلك يعني من هذا التراث. Okay.
I love that you say that. I love that you say that Islamic art is conceptual.
It is definitely conceptual. It's all about interpretation. Really, it's invite the viewer to do its interpretation. I mean, it's very contemporary. It's amazing when you discover that. But it's not the way how we make us to look at this art. We just to tell us how it's beautiful. It's all about aesthetic, but it's more than that. So I can talk really a long time if I start to explain what is the construction or the construction. There is, I mean, if I want to be very quick, we can talk about the idea of tawheed, the unicity. So we have just we take one form, one shape, and if when you multiply it, you have other possibility of meaning. There is meaning of cosmos, of the multiplicity, but we are all creation of God. So we are all the same, but still different. You know, there's many ideas.
But Zoulikha, you did this also because you felt we are losing. You know, similar to Dana, we're losing something.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Dana, she explained it very well with this. With the first idea of losing is this destruction, you know. But there is another.
There's another form of destruction.
There's from destruction, of course, which is like not to speak about,
yes.
not to learn about, not to celebrate. Yes. So this is even sad, you know. This even like we are.
Where do you feel it the most? When you say, you know, both of you, and by all means, please interject, Stanley. When you say that we're losing it, you know, we're not celebrating it, we're not preserving it. How do you feel it?
I think for me personally, it's education, because I mean, I grew up in Saudi, I studied in Saudi, and my art education was extremely Western. Yeah. The first thing I was taught was how to draw still life painting, how to draw a bowl of fruits and whatever. And there was not even one day where they taught us anything about, you know, geometry, illumination, or anything. So, I mean, I feel like we need to totally decolonize our whole educational system.
That's a good word, Dana. Decolonize. I love it. Zoulikha?
Yeah, actually, the idea of decolonize is interesting, but I think that the colonization is finished now. So really, we have to handle.
You think so?
Yeah, because it's our responsibility. I think now it's to work on reconstruct. You know, if I have to quote Derrida, for example. So. Yeah, it's the role of the university, of the role of researcher, and I'm not saying that we have to cut. We have just to study art of Islam, you know, just regarding our culture, you know, because art Islam, it's all the. It's really the art that connects to other civilization, you know. Yeah. So it's really rich. So really, we have to take care of that.
When you say connect to other civilizations, also during our interview for the book, you mentioned that, you know, these masters that you just suggested, mentioned, Klee, Matisse, Monet, they all took from Islamic art.
Spent the time in Tunisia. All the drawing that we know with the comment dire, les coupoles, the domes, and it's come from the rocks of Tunisian, you know. Paul Klee to Pet Mondrian. He came to the abstraction because he looked at the art of Islam. So so there is, of course,
Picasso
the connection
as well with the hand of Fatima and the ceramics that he did.
Yes, of course, and then and the cubism. It's really when you listen, when you read about the conception of the cubism, you find similarity with the reading of abstraction in Islam. So that's what I find interesting is the space what François Julien, who is a French philosopher, called l'entre. It's in between, and this is in between. It's very important. And we when we speak about cultures, we usually say it's different culture. But when we say different culture, we just forget in the in between, and the in between is the most important thing, actually. I think.
Thanks, Stanley. Okay, here we go. So Stanley created a pavilion, I would say, and it's. When I first saw the renderings, I told him that it reminded me of the tomb of Hafiz, who's a very famous Persian poet in Shiraz, and I've had the absolute pleasure of visiting this. And it turns out that I wasn't too far off from that. Stanley's introduction to Islamic art actually is credited to the government of Sharjah, who brought him here for an Islamic festival. And when he came here, he saw all these mosques. And he's an architect by training, so he became fascinated with the architecture of mosques and domes and Islamic geometry. I've plugged in an image here of a traditional Chinese ink painting, which is done, I think, at the beginning of the century. And I'm putting it there for you to see the color scheme. And then this is some of the patterning that Stanley and his team had gone through. And then moving on from there, this is his tools. So that's the sort of the geometric pattern, and then we have Chinese ink brushes. So we have Islamic geometry, and then we have Chinese ink brushes with this color scheme. So then we start with the very traditional Islamic geometric shape, and this is works in process. This is 800 kilos, I'll have you know. These are the brushes. So there are 7,600 ink brushes in here. And you walk in, So you walk into the structure and you look up. And by virtue of you coming in and looking up, that's an act of prayer, because that's what we do. We look up to pray. But you see this beautiful, geometric installation. And then when you stand in there, you feel like you can have this moment to meditate, you can have this moment to relax and just marvel at this. And it's called conversion because he wanted to merge the cultures of Islam with China. And I think that's a nice, not nice, it's a great way of putting it. Stanley, why a structure? Because we talked in the beginning if it's going to be a wall piece or if it's going to be a structure. So why a structure?
As an architect, I always wanted to create some kind of space when you experience art. Usually we view art in the exhibition or art fair. We see this artwork horizontally or looking down to a sculpture. But I try to have this kind of another experience that we enter this pavilion and then you look up and then you realize that the artwork is above you. This is the gesture that I want you, the viewers, to sort of experience. And then at the same time, you're right that I really admire the architecture, the Western architecture and also the Islamic architecture. And the master architects, they have done a lot of work, especially in the mosque. Above the dome, you see all this mosaic, fascinating. And this is also something that I try to create as an architect. That you look up, you find something that is really stunning above you.
You went to the Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque.
Yes.
What did you think?
It's spectacular. I mean, how can we build this? I mean, and then I went back after the visit, I went back to Hong Kong and I watched the documentary. It was one of its kind. Yeah. The largest carpet, the biggest chandelier, all the structure and all the marble they use and the teamwork. It's really amazing.
I think for me, more than anything, I mean, I've taken away so much from conversion. But I think for me, what's absolutely fascinating is China and the Islamic world. How, how did you think to do this?
You mentioned about Sharjah Islamic Festival. They gave me a topic, so I focus on the topic and work around the artwork. But this time, it's quite wide. It's a Burda Endowment, and then it's about Islamic art. So I try to narrow down for myself what I'm going to do with the artwork. I look into Islamic art. There are architecture, of course, and painting and pottery, poem, geometries, and calligraphy. Calligraphy is something that I don't understand because it's different language. But I really like the way how it's similar to when you look at the Asian ink calligraphy or ink painting. You won't be able to understand it if you don't know the language. So I look into both calligraphy or ink painting, and I try to find the common factor. And it comes to me that it's the tools they use. We use both ink brushes, and that's how I narrow down.
So maybe we can say this piece is kind of calligraphic.
Yeah, and then it's a pixelated Islamic geometry.
Yes.
And then since 2016, I was starting to enough with the geometry. It gives you, it refers to the God, and it refers to infinity. And also it gives me the infinite possibility to create art. So I tried the four-fold, 4-point star, 5-fold, 10-point star, and then I really like this one. It's the 6-fold, 12-point star. And I like the form that I can create from this with the pavilion. So, and then with the color, I go back to the Chinese ink painting. I select the common color they use and then apply it onto the Islamic geometry. So it's going back and forth, you know.
But you're also saying with this piece that we do and we have so much in common. Like it's as far as cultures are concerned, that we do intersect and we can share.
Yes.
I think that's also the resounding message.
Right.
You agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with
completely.
that. Yes.
As far as feeling, what did you want us to feel when we walked in here and looked up?
As I mentioned, you break away from looking at the object or people or artwork horizontally. You look up and you forget about what's around you. You look up and you observe. You try to understand what the work is about. This split second or the minute, it break away from what you're doing. So I want you to think of something else, or just get away from what we are now.
Yeah. So it is in a sense, it's very poetic.
Kind of, yes.
I think so. Thank you for that.
Welcome.
I'm gonna close this and open it up for any questions that you'd like to ask. Everybody's pretty shy today. Oh, you have, okay. Yes, we can. Yes. Yes, you're right to say that. Thank you. Oh.
Thank you. Hi, artist. Dana, you touch our heart. I was so sad to see the destruction. But because I live positively, really, I look always at the positive side. I say you are bringing attention to these, to the world by your very smart and clever art. It's a big job. I would like to know how much the length of period it took you to think about it, to do it, and to finalize it, and to arrive in Art Abu Dhabi.
And to deal with Myrna in the process.
First of all, thank you, and I'm sorry I made you sad, but we have to be sad. Well, the thing is, for me, I always have different things that inspire me at different points of my career. So it's not like this all came together at one time. I mean, textiles was part of something I'm interested in since 2016. And cultural destruction is something I've been thinking about, really delving into properly since, I'd say, a year ago. So it just all came together really slowly. And I mean, to produce this work, I had around 4 or 5 months to put it all together, because the research alone took over a month to do. And, you know, flying to India to produce it took some time as well. And so, and that's quite common in all my work. Everything is very slow paced, very methodical, very meditative, and I do appreciate that. I like that element because, I mean, everyday life nowadays is really busy and stressful, and we're always on the go. And for me, I really like to just take my time when I'm making something.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
But you arrived here in Art Abu Dhabi. Great Art Abu Dhabi.
The lady behind you had a question, actually. It's okay? All right.
First of all, congratulations on the amazing exhibition. I think the works displayed are amazing and very deep to contemplate on. I think the one thing that I wanted to ask on was, Zoulikha, you spoke about the fact that we have moved from the idea of decolonization, whereas I feel like we're still very much present and undergoing the process of decolonizing not just institutions, but ways of thinking as well. And Dana, you spoke about the fact that we are in it. So the question or the comment was more to understand, is there the contrast between both views of Dana feeling that we're decolonizing and Zoulikha saying that we're past that and we need to think about other ways of, you know, of going beyond that. So for me, it was the contrast that was very interesting, and I would like to hear from both, if you don't mind, just
So for
the
me
idea.
personally, I still think we're going through it, but it's a different form of colonization. It's the self-colonization. You can see it by the way we dress, the way we speak. You know, it's still that colonized languages are still used. You know, instead of Arabic, people still will speak French. Why? In schools, why are we taught? When I went to school, I learned about all the world wars and Hitler and Stalin. I didn't learn anything about Saudi history. In art education, nothing, you know, nothing at all. Even in university level, they're just starting that. So even architecture, you know, if you come and you drive around Saudi, any city in Saudi, even here, you don't see architecture that is a continuation or inspired from traditional architecture. That's gone completely. My parents built their house inspired by Frank Lloyd Wright, who's an American architect. And when I asked them, why'd you do that? Why not use, you know, sort of Arabic traditions? They're like, no, it's Beledi, you know. So it's the attitude that we need to change. I think it's about, we kind of look at our own culture with such disdain at some levels that it's not about pride anymore. So that's my view. You know, it's about changing the whole way of thinking.
I'm sorry because I can't speak really in French because this is a really important subject for me. So if I explain it in French, it will be more deep. But sorry, I'm going to be on surface because my English is very bad. So I was. There is a little bit misunderstanding. I think I did not express myself very well. What I want to say, it's not. Of course, I think definitely with like Dana that we are still in a post-colonization, of course, period. But for me, we have the means, you know, to go over that. It's and this to move to another step. It's our responsibility. That's what I'm saying, and that's the way, you know, to pass this to go to over post-colonization. We're gonna be in a more interesting time because like this we can even discuss and communicate and dialogue with the other civilization and we arrive to this what I call the in-between, this space of in-between, which really I wish we can reach one day, you know. That's what I want to explain. Sorry, because my English is not very good. So
you know, this reminds me, if I may, years ago, when I was working at Canvas magazine, I had the pleasure of interviewing Marwan Rashmawi, who's a Lebanese artist, and he does a lot of fantastic conceptual works. Actually, he's got a show at the Sharjah Art Foundation. And when we finished the interview, because his work is really about the wars in Lebanon, and I said to him, I said, "But why do you still talk about the war?" And then he said to me, "Who said the civil war ended?" And in that moment, I just stopped, And he said, just because the militias are not out and the city is not divided, it doesn't mean we're not divided. And so they're absolutely right when they say, just because, you know, colonialization as we know it is not physically here, it doesn't mean it's gone. And Dana is 100% right in saying, I mean, I grew up here. I never heard about Hassan Sharif at school. You know, we did Picasso and Monet. We did all them. So it's us. It's on us. And thank God we have these people to remind us.
Hi.
Oh, sorry. But
Is
when
it
you're done,
working?
there's one over there.
Oh, okay. Number one, I love your artwork and I love what it addresses. And personally, I've had a journey with my education where growing up here, always loved history, but I think like Dana said, I just learned World War I, World War II, the French Revolution, the Cold War. And it wasn't until I went to England and I went to a very open art school that I was taught Edward Said's Orientalism. I was given a gender studies class where I explored feminism in Egypt that started in the early 1900s. And it makes me think how I learned about my own history abroad and my history from me here was robbed from me. Do you think that because Arab countries have a certain kind of political censorship, that it's a lot safer for the education system to run away from teaching our own history, because it will help keep people a bit asleep and a bit ignorant of the change that they can cause in their own countries?
We need to take you for coffee. We've just been told that we need to stop right now. If you can find us later, we'll definitely, you know, answer your question. But thank you for that. And I'm sorry, I know Auntie, you wanted to ask, but we've just been told we need to go. All right.